Okay, so here's the second page here. Promised you would talk about symmetry. This is something that's important to understand. We're going to spend a few minutes on it. Okay, so there are three kinds of symmetry that animals exhibit. And one of them isn't a kind of symmetry. It's the opposite, right? Asymmetry. That means no symmetry. All right, so no discernible symmetry. Good example of no symmetry are sponges. And yes, sponges are animals. They're a very primitive form of animals, but they're animals. Okay, what does symmetry mean? Hopefully you learned this in geometry, but symmetry means you can make a line through this animal and one side of the animal will look just like the other side of the animal. If it has a line of symmetry, that one side can look exactly like the other one, then you can say that that's symmetrical. We cannot do that with this animal. There is no line we can draw through this that makes one half look exactly like the other half. And I have an actual real example of a sponge, so you can see that this is true. Okay, so this is a natural sponge, all right? And you can see, you can see this animal had no symmetry. Doesn't matter where I make my line, one half of this animal is not going to look like the other half of this animal. There is no line I can draw. So that's the definition of symmetry. Okay, so sponges, great example of asymmetrical animals. And yes, they are animals. All right. Oh, that's something I forgot to go over. The stuff in the middle for the verts and inverts. I'll go back and do that. That's okay. Okay, radial symmetry is a situation where you can draw an infinite number of lines of symmetry, and they're all those lines of symmetry are based on the radius of the animal. So clearly these are cylindrical or circular shaped animals. Okay, so for instance, a sea anemone. I can draw a line through here that makes one half that looks exactly like the other half. I can draw my line here. Makes one half exactly like the other half. Here, 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 here. All sorts, infinite number of lines of symmetry here, okay? That's radial symmetry. So radial symmetry is symmetry exhibited along a radius, so there are several planes. Sea stars are also radially symmetrical because there are many lines I can draw through here, which would make one half of this animal look like the other half of this animal, right there. Okay, right there, all right? Radially symmetrical. So good examples of that are the cnidarians, like sea anemones, and the echinoderms, like the sea stars. And the last form of symmetry is the kind of symmetry you exhibit, which is bilateral, which means that there is exactly one line of symmetry that we could draw through the body of that animal. So there's exactly one plane through which we can draw a line where we can get that animal to look exactly the same on one half as the other half. And again, it's not exactly the same. Those of you who have taken art have discovered when you cut your face in half, one half doesn't look exactly the same. But when we say the same, it means if I draw a line down through the middle of you, all right, starting at the top of your head, in the middle of your head, and right through your nose and right on down, okay, your two halves will have one arm each. Your two halves will have one leg each, one ear each, one eye each, okay? So that's bilateral, two sides, that's what that means. So symmetry exhibit along one plane only divides the organism into two symmetrical halves. Most vertebrates have bilateral symmetry. So good examples are fish. I cut my fish in half, lengthwise. Half of my fish is going to have one eye, the other half is going to have one eye. Half of my fish is going to have one pectoral fin, the other half of my fish is going to have one pectoral fin, okay, etc. And clearly with you, I just showed you. Okay, I forgot to go over the things that make animals animals in this last thing, so I'm going to go back to that first page, and we're going to look at the middle of this here. Okay? So the middle part here is what all animals have in common. So kingdom Animalia, all animals have tissues, which are individual cells that work together to do one function. So even our most simplest, least complex animals have tissues. Even those sponges have tissues. We're gonna look at that. All animals are heterotrophs. You should remember that from ecology. Heterotrophs means other eating, other feeding. So all animals have to eat to get their food. They're not like plants that make their own food. And all animals are living things. So that's all of kingdom Animalia. Sorry, I should have included that in the last lecture, but I forgot it. Okay, know your symmetry. All right. I think I might leave out dissection terms since we're not doing dissections. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Go ahead and cut it off.